And good evening, everyone. ESS Empire State Sports presents the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show with your host tonight, Joey Riom, Dave Bartlett, and myself, Pete Gosloff. And our guest this evening is Canton High School coach and AD Bill Porter. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
I'm going to turn it over to our resident Mr. Questionnaire, Joey Riom.
All right.
All right. Just like we had Carl on last night, Bill, and tough, grilling questions. I hope you expect it. It's like an hour. It's like 60 minutes.
Well, I appreciate you having me follow a legend. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're a tough follow.
I know.
After last night's show. So, Bill, probably just like everybody else, I'll get to what's going on in your world as an AD with what we're all dealing with. But before that, on personal basis, I mean, I don't know if you have, maybe Pete has and Dave has, but you got 2 months to kill. You find some things to do to pass the time. And one of the things I did, decided I was going to clean out my cellar. Went through a whole bunch of personal belongings and stuff that's been packed away for years. And you won't be able to see this, but I'm looking through stuff, and that's what happens. You start looking at things, and you can't stop looking. You can't see this. I don't know, but it says Porter pumps for 20 to top best seniors.
Oh, boy.
And the reason I have that, I didn't realize you and I played against each other in our exceptional senior games in our senior year.
Isn't that something? Nor did I.
And my team beat you by 33. but you led the game with 20, and I led my team with 18. So and it was just funny because I'm looking through this at Porter. Hey, that's Bill Porter. So I don't even remember that. I remember playing in the game, but I don't remember playing against you.
Yeah. No, it's that was a long time ago, Coach.
Yeah, and I just happened to see that as I'm going through things, and a long time ago. Geez,
I remember that being the first time they experimented with the 3-point line at the high school level. That particular senior game, and big kid from Canton, matter of fact, Tivridge said to me, "Hey, I'm not gonna touch the ball today." He says, "So I'm gonna just screen for you." I said, "Hey, okay, that's fine with me." We had a lot of fun.
You had 4 and I had 3, and it's funny. I said the same thing to my wife as I was coming down here. I said, Bill and I were apparently the leading scorers in our exceptional seniors game. I don't remember it, but that was the one thing I remembered was that was my first night with the 3-point line. I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have had this thing when we were playing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, hey, you want to talk about a long time ago? They didn't even have an exceptional seniors game when I was in high school.
No, Pete, did they have it when you were in there? So I think when Bill and I played in it, that was only maybe the second or third year of it at the most.
Yeah.
So it really, and back then, I know in the night that Bill and I played, we had enough for 2 boys games. Now we're lucky if we can get enough kids for 1, but we used to have 2 boys games for exceptional seniors games way back when. So
yeah, we sure did, in a pretty good crowd at those times as well.
And I think if I remember right, Bill, I think you and I played. It was at Dana Hall at SUNY Canton, if I remember.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, what's the life like right now for the AD at Canton? I mean, see if you tell any different stories than we've been hearing from other people. But what have you been able to accomplish? What are you able to do right now?
I suspect it's similar to what everyone else is saying. At this point, as soon as the governor called, pulled the plug on the rest of the school year, I got into, okay, what's next, right? Just like anyone. And we started thinking about what do we need to do for the fall. Of course, we're going through a number of things, ideas and such to honor our seniors at this time. What are we going to do, to send them out in a positive and appropriate manner? So corresponding with our administrative team and counselors and teachers, and just trying to close out this year as best we can, and and look to the fall. I'm going to be optimistic that we will have sports this fall until somebody tells me I shouldn't be. So at this point, we're just all guns blazing for the fall season to occur.
How much angst is brewing right now, and Coach LaSalle not being able to get the kids into the gym and anything like that right now? It's got to be, along with all of us, it's got to be driving us nuts.
No more than Coach Martin and LaPlante up in Chateauguay, no more than you, no more than, the guys in Ogdensburg, and, all of us that take the game seriously and want to provide opportunities for our kids. So, it's tough. So, we try to connect with them remotely. I've heard a couple of your talks, and, we're doing similar things here. In fact, one of the things we do just for fun, I do a Trick Shot Tuesday. We've had some pretty good responses out of that. The guys send me in videos of them, taking some wild and wacky shots, which certainly we don't want them taking those come game time, but just to get out and have some fun. Somebody's got to record them. Obviously they're spending more time in the driveway than just shooting those crazy shots. So just trying to stay connected with our kids, let them know that we care about them, want them to continue to put in the work and so on.
Yeah, I hear you there. I've had have my plenty of Zoom meetings, and on top of that, trying to stay in touch with our seniors. I'm sure you've been doing that as well, because I know this has been a tough time for them. And actually, you probably have too, but we tried to come up with a way to honor the senior athletes. We came up with something, but and I'm sure every school's can be a little different. There's only so much you can do, but the one thing I found out is how appreciative they are. We came up with something very simple just to get them flowers to them and their parents, and they are so happy about that.
Nice.
Just by the chance of being able to see somebody that they haven't seen in 2 months, other than on a TV screen or a computer screen like this. So,
right.
I'm sure other schools are thinking the same things, trying to do things. So,
yeah, for sure. We're well, one of the things we did last weekend, a couple of the custodians and I and an art teacher took our field painter and went on the side hill. I don't know if I know you're familiar with our school, but as you come up the hill from 310, there's sort of an embankment there on the soccer field. We just wrote 2020 as big as we could in, golden brown paint. And we've asked people to come by and put some solar lights out there. We're trying to surround it so you can see that from 310 from quite a good distance away. And next Saturday, we're going to do a senior parade where we line everybody up. All the teachers are going to line up out in front of the school. Of course, we're going to all be appropriately distanced. And then the seniors are going to drive through, and, we've got some goodie bags and things like that for them. So, I think it's just similar stuff in other communities that people are trying to give kids a sense of, not a sense of normalcy, because we're certainly not normal right now, but just let them know that we do care. And, we got into education. Most people get into education for the right reasons. It certainly isn't the paycheck. It's, because we enjoy working with young people, want to, positively influence them. So doing what we can, as I know you guys are as well.
Well, and also, Bill, you and I have Toby and Declan and Loudon kind of the same age, so we're kind of going through the same things. How's life right now for the boys? Loudon, is he finished it with Fisher classes, and how did that go for him for these 2 months?
Yeah, well, I'll back up and I'll say I'm glad Toby made the right choice in attending Cortland College. Happens to be my alma mater as well. So I hope he's enjoying himself there. I'm sure he is. The boys they're doing what they can. There's been a lot of, I think one of the reasons I've had so many glitches, we'll say, with my Zoom meetings is we've got 5 laptops going at any one time in my house. My wife is a resource room teacher. She's sometimes 8, 10, 12 hours a day connecting with her kids one-on-one as a resource and support for them. At the same time, Declan's on his computer doing his thing with Exeter still. And they are not shy with homework, and they throw it at him as fast as he can digest it. And Loudon just finished up a couple of days ago, so he is probably fishing right now. Yeah, so
Well,
it's
at least he's out of the house.
yeah, for sure. It's been good having them home. Obviously this is it's a blessing in many ways. I think a lot of people are looking at this time as a blessing in some ways and as a hindrance to their lives in others. But, to have your family home for that amount of time, and you're really having some good conversations with them and adult conversations with them, has been good, as I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing with Toby being around. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable having them home, and I feel for them. I feel for all the kids, because I know that this is not the way they wanted to spend their spring when it came to, I'm sure Loudon really would rather have been at school as much as Toby would have been, but it is what it is. So,
Yeah.
So you mentioned Cortland, Bill. So why don't you give the viewers a little idea of, graduated from Governor, obviously went on to SUNY Cortland. If you want to talk about that time frame and how you've gotten to where you're at right now.
Sure. I obviously grew up in Governor. Played for my dad when I was younger. Was in the just a consummate gym rat. I didn't have formal basketball until 7th grade, like many of us at the time. There were no travel teams. There were no weekend trips like the thousands you've taken and I've taken through the years. Yeah. I hung out in the gym with my dad as a coach, and was around all the other coaches at school. Those were my mentors. Those were the guys I looked up to. Lacey Jones, Baba Dickey, John Mossing, some Governor names that a lot of people from Governor they know well. Dick Foster, and so I just kind of became a gym rat, got hooked later into my time in Governor, going into my junior year. My dad got out of coaching. George Gordon came in. We had pretty good teams back then. My junior year, we won the league in the Central, beat Malone 2 times during the regular season, and then Gallagher and Genoa and some of those guys up in Malone got us over at Maxey Hall. So we had a good run in high school. Went on to Cortland. Wasn't recruited. Actually, I was recruited by one person, John Conowitz at a North Country Community College, who actually ended up being my coach at Cortland going into my junior season. Have nothing but good things to say about my time at Cortland. I do remember thinking back to Malone. I'm standing on the line at opening day of tryouts at Cortland, and 60 guys on that line, because it was a time when they really didn't do a lot of recruiting. You had the guys that were returning, you knew you were keeping them, and then you just, at a PE school, they just brought in guys and made cuts. So I looked down the line and thinking, oh my God, there's no chance I'm ever going to make this team. All these guys are, they're big and strong, and you're a kid, you're intimidated. And I look at the far end, and there's Steve Matthews, this kid that I played against up in Malone at the time. And, he had a big smile. I had a big smile. We both ended up making the JV team that year. And then, from there, kind of life went on. I finished 4 years playing there and had a great time. Got hired here in Canton. Have been working really hard to try and replace Jerry Howerhand since he left. It's, following a legend isn't an easy thing for sure. But we've kind of kept Hooley involved and engaged in our program as much as we can. One of the greats for sure. We've had a camp that we've run here now for, last year would have been the 25th year. We call it the Hooley School of Basketball after Jerry Howerhand. That was his nickname, Hooley. But it was designed for younger kids, grades 3 through 8, and we had our older kids come and work the camp every year, and it's been good for us. Been a nice fundraiser, good way to connect our older kids with our younger kids, and so on. But we kept that, tried to keep his legacy going throughout the years. Troy has come in and done the same thing. we often correspond with Hooley via email or text, and he's got our digital game day account. He watches our game film, and every now and again chimes in. So it's been nice having him engaged in our program. So.
Well,
Yeah,
and we've talked. Hooley messaged me within the last week or so. Him and I talk on a constant basis because he is a St. Lawrence Central grad, and
yeah,
always has been a fan of what we do out here. And you couldn't ask for anything better to be able to follow in his footsteps, and what a legacy he's created, and
for sure.
And it's just got to be nice to have somebody like that around when he is around, before he heads to Florida for the winter, just knowing that he still cares. I mean, how many times did I go to SLU summer team camp, and I would see Hooley. Hooley would be at those games. He would be at, you just walking around, just happy to watch basketball. And if I remember right, during the time frame that Toby and the boys were coming up through, I remember a year that Hooley took him that weekend, actually coached a Canton team at SLU team camp. Might have been Declan or Loudon. I don't know, but I remember that. And that was within the last 10 years. So
yeah, I think that may have been, I was out of town maybe with Declan. He was playing for the City Rocks team, and there were a couple of different conflicts that we had. And so I was out of town with him, and I think Troy was the same. Maybe he spends a week or so out in Delaware on the coast. And so I think I do believe Hooley filled in, and the guys obviously benefit immensely from him. But he's the greatest. He comes into the camp, and he doesn't want the kids to know that the camp's named for him. He's extremely humble, but he always wants to work a station. Like if he comes to camp, it's just like he doesn't really want to speak in front of the kids anymore. He did for a number of years. He just wants to get in and maybe work with one of the stations and teach a little bit. And, as it's in your blood, it's in my blood, it's in his blood. It's just part of his DNA. And, those people that enjoy sports to the level that we all do, we kind of understand it, so it doesn't surprise me a bit to have him pop in and, and say hi. And we're good. We miss having him around. Wish he's around more, but of course he's retired,
Yeah.
His time in Florida.
Yeah, we had Hooley on, probably back in 2014. We had him on, interviewed him. He brought a stack of books with him and binders, and during the course of broadcast, he'd show us something, but we couldn't. It was a audio interview, so it's not like we could show it on like we do today.
Right.
Maybe if we get him on here, maybe he can do a picture show with us. But yeah, good. He's a very good man. He knew my father growing up, so very good man, Hooley. So there seems to be a common theme here with some of the people we're interviewing, and it comes up with that C word, Cortland. It must, I don't know, it must be a North Country thing. Everybody wants to travel to Cortland. So I got to ask you a question. I guess it's about your boys. Neither one of them wanted to go to Cortland?
Well, they both considered it. We went to a camp actually a number of years ago, a team camp that had some games at the Cortland main gymnasium, then some down in Ithaca. I hate to say that without throwing up in my mouth a little bit, but yeah, they enjoy it. They like the complex. They like the school, but they both just had they just had different paths they wanted to follow in their lives, And I say this to kids all the day. It's we're trying to prepare you for that path. It's your path, So they didn't go there. I wasn't hurt at all, but I enjoyed my time there. I noticed you guys you spoke in one of your episodes about John Conowitz, and I did want to just mention briefly the positive impact he had on my life. Fantastic man. He and his wife Judy, I knew very well, back in the time when I was playing for him. He still gives back to the Au-Sable area, I believe, and still coaching up in that area. I don't see him all that often, but I should. He's a fantastic fantastic guy. It really helped me in my life. So I just wanted to kind of give that shout out to him.
Well, and Bill, I think Dave, did you say you played for him at North Country, or am I wrong there?
Yeah, I do recall Dave saying that.
I think the Adirondacks are getting us right now, Bill. You and I are good, but
yeah, no, I did want to ask Dave that question about his experience with John.
No,
classic Zoom at its best right now.
Yeah, he's breaking up, but I played for John for 2 years, then I went back as a graduate assistant coach with him for the next 2. So I actually had a chance to coach with him early on, and learned an awful lot from him. And I was fortunate when I moved here and started working in Canton.
Yeah, no, John Conowitz was coaching.
Here we go.
Well,
still not getting him.
I think we lost him again. I was worried. Here I was worried about this happening to you, Bill, and it's happening to Dave. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, from Cortland.
Yeah. How about now?
You good now?
There we go.
I think so. If you can hear me, I'll just go back real quick. So yeah, John Conowitz, first year of coaching at North Country Community College was my first year there. I was recovering from a knee surgery, so I didn't play. I ended up playing against him a couple of years later when he was coaching at Paul Smith's, and I was playing at Clinton Community College.
Okay.
But I talked to him before that game, and he remembered me from that year because I worked out with the team as much as I could. But like I said, I had a knee surgery, so I wasn't actually on the team.
Right. Right.
But yeah, no, I benefited from his coaching just by being there at the practices and being with the team. Great guy.
Yeah, for sure. He's one of those guys that remembers everyone also. Just like you were saying, he didn't even have to play for him. He just remembers faces and names, and sort of like Jerry Welch. I heard you guys talking about him, and he certainly had an influence on my life. I heard you talking about Maxey Hall, how it was packed back in the day, and I was a little kid in those stands, and watching that toilet paper hit the court, and they had they took a timeout and cleared it off, and I had the other approach. I was thinking how cool it would be to come in there, as a player from Cortland and beat them on their home court. Like how exciting that could be. So, that was something that took us 3 years to do, but we eventually were able to do it at Cortland, and John was a big reason for that. He was at New Paltz after North Country and came from New Paltz, brought his best players from New Paltz, melded them together with our guys at Cortland, and we had a pretty good team my junior year at Cortland. And so that was, that was a pretty cool experience, for me.
Well, and Bill, I obviously because of coaching, I couldn't get down to SUNY Cortland as much as I did. I was able to get down one weekend, and it happened to be the weekend they hosted SUNY Potsdam and SUNY Plattsburgh. And John is assisting at SUNY Plattsburgh again, which I had no idea.
Really? All right.
I'm sitting in the crowd, and I'm sitting with my aunt is Shirley Cahill. And when you went to school there, you probably remember the name Pete Cahill.
Absolutely. I know Pete. Yeah.
And so Pete was my uncle. And so Shirley was sitting with me as we were watching Toby do his managing gig. And she said, boy, that assistant coach from Plattsburgh State looks a lot like John Conowitz. Now, when she said that, I'm like, well, then that's got to be him, because you would recognize him from his days here as SUNY Cortland coach. So he's assisting at SUNY Plattsburgh.
That's it doesn't surprise me with him. He can't stop. I mean, he loves, like I said, he's a junkie. He loves to be in the gym, you know.
Well, I think we've heard that name now enough in shows. We'll have to try to reach out to him, see if we can get him on this.
Yeah, there you go.
On this show. But yeah, and it's always great to hear when a coach has touched your life that way, and you know, and obviously he's a basketball lifer. I mean, Dave mentioned North Country, mentioned Paul Smith. You mentioned New Paltz, SUNY Cortland, Plattsburgh. I mean, he's been all over the place, following his passion.
Yeah, for sure. You know, just to kind of segue away from that, coming back to Canton, you know, Larry Jenney was a fantastic role model for me as well here. He was the coach in Canton when I came here in 93, 94. He won the overall championship. I think the last time before Troy won it was when Larry coached the team, I think in maybe 96.
96. Yep. They beat us in the Class C championship game. That's what I remember.
Okay. Yeah, but I learned an awful lot from Larry about, you know, how to treat people. Like, he was just an unbelievable coach in terms of the care he had for his players, and, you know, just a fantastic role model for me, you know, springboarding into my coaching career. At the same time frame, I was the modified coach here, and I was also assisting over at St. Lawrence with Dave Paulson. And I don't know if there's a better basketball mind on the planet than Dave Paulson. Kind of come full circle. Probably one of the reasons why my son Declan ended up at Williams College is because that was Dave's alma mater. He spoke so passionately about that school that I had to share that with Declan. And you know, he was fortunate enough to be able to attend. It's a really nice place, and a lot of good opportunities hopefully ahead of him. But yeah, super coach.
Speak a little bit about Williams, you know, the conference that they're in, and do they, you know, because I haven't seen them like up in this neck of the woods. They get over into New York State, playing the games in New York State. How much traveling are you going to be doing this year?
Well, he's about 4 hours away. Our lifestyle is absolutely crazy. My son Loudon is playing out at St. John Fisher, as you had mentioned. My son Declan is going to be playing at Williams. He was at Exeter for a postgraduate year. That's a 6-hour drive. Williams College is a 4-hour drive. Rochester's 3.5. I was coaching our JV team, helping Troy with the varsity as best I can, and trying to run an athletic department. If I don't give some credit to my wife, I'm never going to be allowed home. Probably the best basketball mind, definitely in my household, definitely the best player in our house, and one of the best basketball minds in the North Country. No one would know that, of course, because she's, you know, spent a lot of time raising a family, and but you know, behind the scenes, our boys and girls programs here in Canton have had her there for a long time. I don't think anyone probably knows that. She doesn't want anybody to know that either. She just likes being in the gym. My wife scored almost 2,000 points in her college career out of SUNY Geneseo. She's the reason that my sons and daughter have any athletic ability. She certainly didn't get it from me. You know, so I not only does she understand the life of an athletic director, the life of a coach, but she expects it. Like, she expects me to be in the office. She expects me to be on the road, scouting and things like that. So I couldn't be more fortunate to have married up like I did. You know, I know a lot of the coaches out there feel the same way. We don't say it as much maybe as we could or should, but I know, you know, I'm sure you agree with me. Having that support is such a big deal. So I just wanted to give her some of that credit, because certainly she's enabled me to not just coach basketball. I coach our varsity track team, and I'm one of our football coaches as well. So, you know, I'm busy. I'm 12 hours minimum a day here, and she expects it. So without her support, I couldn't fulfill my passion. So.
And I had, it's funny, Bill, you got to it before I got to it, because I had Kate written down as in because for me personally, when I think of North Country sports families, the Porters come to mind for me, the Sargents come to mind for me. I'm lucky I live in a town, the Roses, Julie and Chris Rose, another sports where the whole
For
family
sure.
is top to bottom. Coaches, athletes, their kids, and whatnot. So, and when you talk about Kate in her coaching time, I remember it because when Declan was Toby and Matthew and Colby's age, I mean,
That's
their
right.
fourth, fifth, and sixth grade years, it was always Kate doing the coaching versus me, not you. It was Kate.
Yeah.
So I certainly remember her giving her time. And where I was going to go with this was also, I know she was a ref in Section 10 for a long time. Did she ever ref in a state Final Four?
She refed in a state Final Four, yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, she did a couple of games that weekend. Yeah, I mean, she went up through the ranks quickly. She's stays in good shape. She's got a great mind for the game. Quite frankly, if we hadn't met and moved to Canton and decided to raise a family, she'd probably have been a Division I coach somewhere. That was one of her aspirations at one point in her life. But obviously a family was important to her, and we certainly have no regrets with that. So, we've had a lot of good people, behind the scenes here supporting our program. Fortunately, because like you alluded to, you've done it all for a long time, and have been a fixture with the young kids and every weekend at a tournament and so on. And that's what it takes to be successful. But to have a number of people, involved really can help sustain it. And I know that's why Ogdensburg's been successful. That's why Chateaugay's successful. That's why, over in Madrid, those schools that have the programs that sustain success have a lot of people, working for them. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up names like Henry LeQueer in our program years ago. Spent tons of time with our youth program, and Mike Wentworth, Carla Wentworth, Mike Myers, who really kind of got the wheels rolling with our girls program, and then and then obviously he moved downstate. Jim DeSalvo and Randy Zeminski have taken that over and and done real good things with that as well. Alicia Wentworth. There's just a lot of names here that that help with the success. And I guess I'm trying to thank in a roundabout way. George Gordon, certainly Troy LaSalle, who is just a phenomenal young mind and motivator and cares deeply about his players. I mean, I couldn't be more blessed to have been surrounded by people that have influenced my family directly and the kids that I work with on a daily basis. So I just had to go in that direction. So just as a big thank you to all of them.
Totally understand. And as athletic director as well, I mean, you're not just basketball related. You oversee, you oversee a lot of sports and good hockey program over there. Good, everything that you have to do. So feel free. You got people you want to mention. That's what this show is about.
I mean, I could go on and on because, as you said, I mean, I could do the same thank yous with the sport of football and the guys that have kept that alive and kept it going. And as you said, ice hockey, we've got a young core of coaches that are, just go-getters. And I couldn't be, as I tell them constantly, my job is to just not screw things up for you guys. I just try to stay out of their way, help them as best I can, support them in their efforts, and work hard every day at getting better personally so that I can, help them professionally. And I know you're doing the same thing. It's not easy. It's a tireless job, sometimes a thankless job, but the thank yous come. As you get older, you see it in an eye of someone when they look at you, or you hear it a conversation, or the thank yous come, and that's extremely satisfying. professionally. So I've been really blessed here to be surrounded by a lot of good people. I also wanted to mention I'm going back to St. Lawrence Central a little bit, and Joe Jabinville and the days when, when he was coaching, and I just saw some wedding photos from had to be the early 90s, and there's Chris Rose in a wedding photo and hanging out over with my wife's brother Kirk. They were good friends back in their time at SUNY Potsdam, and Rosie and I, we've kept in touch through the years, and obviously I see him every year when he coaches lacrosse or whatever. But talk about an athletic family. I mean, that his kids are off the charts, and no surprise there for sure. I went to the lacrosse national championships for probably 14, 15 straight years, and every year they were they were there in the parking lot tailgating, and and then just enjoying family time and enjoying the game of lacrosse, which obviously he loves and passionate about. So just lots of memories. You guys, I've listened to a number of your podcasts, and I hear you talking about certain names, and it brings up a lot of memories. So I really appreciate you all doing this.
Well, and we just tied up. Obviously, Chris Rose was an easy connection for me, but we finally got him to commit to a date just today. So he'll be coming on a little bit later in the month. So
awesome.
And his son Carter just signed with Clarkson. Going to be skating for Clarkson University within a couple of years. So
wow.
Good for them, and we're pretty proud here at St. Lawrence Central because of them. So
for sure.
Bill, do you? I know Canton for a while was battling with the numbers game as far as what classification the school was going to be at one point, whether or not you're going to be bouncing up or down. Has that settled down? Because I remember going through that when Salmon had to move up. So.
Yeah, Pete. It's you have to speak about each sport independently these days, because they're kind of all over the place. Certain sports like ice hockey, we're going to stay Division I, even though we're a Division II population, because our coaches choose to play at that level. With other sports like football, we're an A school right now, even though we're all intents we're a C, but without our mergers, we don't have a program. So whereas we might have 16 or 17 boys on our football team from Canton, we need those 2 kids coming from Herman DeKalb, or those 3 kids coming from Lisbon. Or at least we have had to need, we have needed those kids over the past few years. Unfortunately, when you merge with 3 or more schools, it automatically, there's a rule, and this rule that bumps you to the A classification. So by taking on those kids, we become an A school. So across the board, you look at other sports like the sports we play in the Central. Right now, we're the 6th largest school out of the biggest 8. We were the 7th largest for the longest time. Potsdam actually their enrollment went below us recently, so they're number 7. SLC's number 8 in terms of enrollment. So like in the sport of basketball, we're going to be a B for the foreseeable future. Same thing with soccer, all those baseball, softball, that kind of thing. It's the sports where we really need the mergers, where we bump up that level. Some sports it doesn't, like ice hockey. It wouldn't matter if we took on a lot of mergers because we're already playing at the highest level. The thing with there is we don't necessarily need the mergers. We have enough boys from our own community involved. So every year it's an ebb and a flow. We try to stay ahead of it the best we can, project signups and, figure all that out, as I try to communicate it to Carl and the other schools as best we can, as soon as we can. But it's not easy, there's a lot of tracking involved. So yeah, I know it's the long response to it's a complicated question.
Yeah, it is. And I'm from the old school where we had Division I, II, and III, and then then they went to the classes. So, and then it was difficult at some point when they started doing that, as far as the sizes, and they were determining by class size. And I was gonna ask you the mergers with schools. Now, what sports particularly do you merge with, and what schools are? Because you just mentioned Herman DeKalb, and you mentioned
Yeah,
Lisbon.
Yep. So I'll preface this by saying we're either blessed or we're burdened by our geography when it comes to mergers. So being right in the middle of St. Lawrence County, because there are people that are opposed to mergers. People don't think that, we should be taking kids from other community, both within Canton and outside of. Personally, they've been nothing but positive for our programs. They've helped sustain our programs. They've helped keep, our student athletes in Canton able to play, certain sports. So we merge with Ogdensburg. There's a lot of them, but like Ogdensburg in the sport of girls ice hockey, as an example. So that's a big one. Two big schools coming together, and a couple other schools in that sport as well. But the schools in general that we merge with, we share a wrestling program with Potsdam. We're actually, it's in our name, but their student athletes come here to wrestle. So we have mergers with them. We have mergers with Augsburg, Lisbon, Colton Pierpont, Edwards Knox, Huvilton, Maddard Waddington. And I hope I didn't leave anybody out, because I'm sure they'll let me hear about it. But there's a number of them, and they're in different sports. Track and field we may have a merger with some Lisbon kids that want to come over and participate. Edwards Knox may not have some kids on a given year that want to come and run on our track team. So, we try to provide opportunities for as many neighboring schools as we can. And at the same time, help keep bolster our numbers, because we're not a big school. I think a lot of people, I think that misconception's out there. For my entire tenure as say the basketball coach, Joe can relate to this well, because he was the number 8 in terms of school size. I was the number 7 as the basketball coach in Canton. When Larry Jenny won that title in '96, they were a C school. The year that I moved in and started coaching, we were a B up until Joey and I played for the C championship. So a few years ago, I can't recall specifically the year. It probably was 2013 or so.
13.
So all that time we were a B school. The one time I'm a Class C school, and Joey's got to get me. But anyway.
It's funny, because that's the only thing I got left to talk about, Bill. And it wasn't because I was gonna bring this up because I want to rub this in. This got brought up in another show. If you watch the Steve Skiff show, remember you were the 4 seed that year, and you went up and beat a Tupper Lake team that had beaten me both times. So when I found out that we were playing you, and you had beaten me during the regular season as well, so I'm not making it sound like we felt relieved or anything. But I didn't want to play Skiffer. I did not want to play him. I wanted to play you, and I wanted to play Randy, and I ended up getting both of you guys. But talk about that Skiffer. You could just tell Skiffer still hurts from that game when you went up and beat him in that semifinal.
Yeah, well, I didn't beat him. Our kids played well that day, and it's. As when you're playing in the Central Division, you're battle tested, as a smaller school, as a C school, playing against B's and A's, and then you set your non-league schedule and you try to challenge yourself appropriately, where you can, so that you are challenged, right? Because you don't learn much by just beating everybody. You want to be challenged. So we felt like we had a challenging enough schedule that year and played well enough in a number of games where, although we were the 4 seed, it was based on our record in the Central, right? And Tupper's record in their conference was a lot better than ours. They had a lot more wins. They should have been seeded the 1. We had no problem where we were seeded. It was a 2-game tournament anyway. That's what we talked about with our guys. So, we just tried to convey to them that we were battle tested. We've been in a lot of competitive games against a lot of good players, and we're peaking at the right time. And And you know, we want to get to Maxie Hall, and you know, we call it the Maxie Taxi. We want to get on that Maxie Taxi and be over there. And we felt we were the best team. I can't you know, hide that fact. We felt like we were, and you know, we didn't play as well as we could have at times, you know, over at Maxie, but we didn't have a big Ramsdale kid either, who played exceptionally well, and I give that kid a ton of credit. He hell of a player, and we had no answers for him. So it's you know, you know, that's, I don't recall a ton from it. It's one of those games I think I try to block out and move on from, because it did sting. But at the same time, you know, we lost to a quality coach and a quality program and a bunch of great kids. And hey, what's next? We got to move on and figure out what we needed to work on next and get back in the gym, right? I mean, that's how people respond.
Well, and from there, you know, I always gave you credit for the fact that your boys were coming, and you had made that decision that if you could find somebody, and Troy came along, and I've always just, I was impressed with that. I know you and I had discussed that because I had contemplated doing the same thing with Toby's group if I could find the right person, but I just didn't get lucky enough. I don't regret at all, obviously, the time that I got to coach, and it was awesome. But it was something I thought about myself. But at least you were still part of the program, and you still are part of the program as a JV coach. So, you know, speak to that. Yeah. How was it going from varsity to JV, and how, you know, looking back now, are you glad you did it that way?
I feel like it took me over 20 years to get a promotion. You know, and I feel like I was promoted to the JV level. I absolutely love that level. I always have. You know, and I don't feel like I turned the program over to just anybody. I remember Troy as a competitor in high school playing against us, and fierce competitor, both on the football field, on a baseball diamond. I mean, he's relentless. He's a hard worker. You know, very intelligent, you know, young man. I saw him working at St. Lawrence basketball camp, and I just said to him, I'm like, you know, you're marrying a Coakley, you're going to live in Canton. I got to have you on staff here somewhere, doing something, you know, football, basketball. Would you ever consider coaching? And he was interested. I said, well, I don't care what level you want to come in and be our modified, our JV, our varsity coach. I got to have you on staff. And you know, fortunately for me, he chose the varsity level. I was hopeful for that, because I knew he would bring a breath of fresh air and a renewed energy to our program. Not that I didn't have it, but I needed help, and I couldn't be happier with the decision. And I say this a lot. I think every young man needs a good dad and needs a good coach, and I wanted my boys selfishly to have that. You know, Tom Close is a dear friend of mine in the football program. You know, he's had a positive impact on my boys. I don't want to, you know, go through all the names or it'd take me all day, but George Gordon, for me to play for Coach G back in the day in high school, and then to coach against him and get beat by him more than I beat him. And then to have his son Jack here in our school and in our program, and then to have him come on staff and get to know him, you know, at a deep emotional level. I mean, what an unbelievable kind soul that man is. I was honored to speak at his funeral, and you know, muster up some you know, some words about him, and you know, certainly a huge impact on my life, but not just my life, but my children's lives also. You know, and for him to be involved with a state Final Four run, with Coach G there and Troy at the helm, and you know, all those people I mentioned earlier, kind of building the foundation. It just couldn't have been a prouder moment, more enjoyable moment for me. And I will say, I was listening to Coach Martin last night, because his son is an unbelievable player. I would just, if I had any advice for those coaches that coach their own children, don't forget to enjoy it. You know, it was always the oh, we got to get ready for Messina. How are we going to beat them? Oh, we got to get ready for Malone. How are we going to beat them? Oh, we got to get ready for St. Lawrence Central. How, you know, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I wish I had. So if I have any advice to coaches who are involved with the coaching of their own kids, you know, enjoy it. It goes by in a blink of an eye. Everyone talks about, you know, in the basketball world, to talk about, you know, my boys, but I do have a daughter. She's a sophomore. Her sport's volleyball. I'm so looking forward to just being a dad and watching her as she develops. She's at home probably right now. She's got a little thing in the basement. She pounds the volleyball off and you know, working on her bump and her set and that kind of thing. And couldn't be more proud of my kids and the situation I'm involved with, the people I'm surrounded by. You mentioned it before, and I'll just reiterate it again. The brotherhood that is coaches in the North Country is second to none. The brotherhood and sisterhood of those men and women that are athletic directors, second to none. We're led by the best in the section, and I'm talking about Carl. I'm talking about Paul Herrica. I'm talking about Russ. You know, and it just trickles down. I mean, we have such a strong working relationship, I think, in that room, as you can attest to. And I have the similar kind of thing here in Canton with our coaches and our coaching staff. And I just couldn't be, you know, I'm a knock on wood, but it couldn't be in a better spot. I'm very appreciative.
Well, Bill, that's the whole reason we, you know, Pete and Dave and I talked about bringing this little show back, especially right now in this downtime, is to show how tight knit the North Country community is, and how we root for each other in all the sports and at every level. Coach, AD, doesn't matter what, college level. There's just a connection up here, and you know what you just said over the last 5 minutes speaks to that. And I'm glad that we were able to have you on tonight.
Well, I appreciate it as well. And I thank you guys for doing this, kind of recording the history of the North Country. I hope you're able to get some of those guys on, like Conowitz and many, many others. Just kind of documents some of the stories and such. So thank you.
Yeah, Bill, thank you very much for coming on. We're definitely trying to get as many guys as we can on. We got actually people contacting us to be on the show, which is really nice. So we haven't had to go and beg too much. Yeah, we haven't had to go and beg too much, but we don't mind begging it sometimes. But we appreciate you coming on. Good luck with your boys and your daughter, and everything moving forward. And it was nice to have you on.
Well, I really appreciate it, Pete, and thank you, Dave, Joey. I'm sure we'll see you again. Hopefully, we'll see you again soon in a gym.
Yeah.
I'll see you in the morning. We have an AD meeting.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. All right.
All right, guys.
I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill. For Joey Reaume, Dave Bartlett, I'm Pete Gosla signing off, and with our interviewee, our guest tonight, Bill Porter. Thank you very much, Bill. You've been listening to the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show right here on ESS Empire State Sports. Everybody have a good night and stay safe.